So George, I don't know if that's something that you can consider exploring. So yeah, using documenting your specifications using the FHIR profiling thing. And by the way, there's a video on profiling where we go through a bit the profiling basics. And there's another on our community, on the Digital Square global goods community. There's another video on the implementation guides. If you go through those, it's 3 or 4 hours total. I think 3 hours total. And with that, you can get some quick insight on how to do that. It's really easy. But with that, I do not know how others are doing in terms of their specifications, in terms of using the what libraries people are using, what adapters people are building to make their data available on FHIR or receive data on a FHIR format. I would like to get more experiences. Anyone? If
So
not, who else?
if I may
Oh,
go on
sorry, go
again.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm becoming a mouthful. I was just wondering, so what would you encourage? Do we need to just change our whole architecture? Because currently we are running a mobile-based system, Android. It's Android in nature. The reason why we went for the FHIR adapter is because we didn't want to change the whole architecture of our app. So that's one of the main reasons why we went for the adapter. So what would you suggest? Because we were looking at the Android FHIR SDK, and I know there's some work that has been going on in there, but it's not as huge as compared to what the FHIR community is doing, the native FHIR community is doing. So what's your suggestion on that?
If the question is put that simply, do we recommend, or does the community or anyone recommend to change the architecture? I don't think so. So FHIR is a very good excuse for you to change your architecture if you want to, like adopting RESTful services, etc. If you don't have to, FHIR should not be an impediment, or it should not be an obstacle there. So if you already have your application architecture, I don't know if you're talking about system architecture or just application architecture. If you have an application working, if it's working, keep it working. Maybe a parallel track would be converting this to an existing SDK, like the Google AdWords SDK. I love that, and it's standard work. So they are really pushing the ecosystem forward, which is great. So I guess that if you have something that works, there's no point in using another framework. If you have something that is kind of in development, you might as well take a quick look at what they are doing and then re-estimate, because the beginning might be a steeper curve. So you might have to go through a bit more. It's learning how other communities are catching up is always more difficult than just doing your own thing. But after that, then yeah, like I just use the example of the implementation guides. What if you could set up a server with a given behavior, or with a given set of constraints in a matter of making the specification and deploying the server? If that would take a couple of hours, that would be awesome. Well, that's what we have. So, but to do that, you have to learn a few things before getting there. So that's the balance that you will always have to make. But if you have something that works, as a general rule, if you have something that works, don't touch it. If you have something that kind of works, well, maybe now is the time to see how is the future going to look like. If you have something that doesn't work, or something that you're just starting, then yeah, definitely look at the other tools, knowing that they will not save you time up front. They will require a bit more catching up. But once you're there, the idea is that you are not alone. You have a community behind you. Does that help with your question, George?
Yes, it does. It does a lot. Thanks.
And can I go? Sorry. Yeah. So I couldn't see the icon to raise my hand. That's why I just kept shouting a bit like.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Go.
Please interrupt.
No worries. So for you, George, I think I'll answer your question like from the last one. You don't have to change your whole architecture like to fit into the FHIR standard and everything, because the reason is, for now, like, it's going to be a gradual process to adopt, and you are better off using like an adapter as you are now with the FHIR adapter, FHIR. Optionally, there's like also maybe like the DHIS FHIR adapter, but I think last time I checked it was discontinued on their official repository. They pointed to something different or like some thread where that work might be continuing, but I don't think it's like an active thing going on right now. And then why I'm also saying so is like with regards to not changing our architecture is because, FHIR really primarily makes like for an already existing system, it makes sense for external communications like integrations. So with that as well, what we saw and what we experienced at some point when I was working with the ministry in Malawi was that I think the best idea or the best approach would be like a gradual thing, because like like even the FHIR standard itself is continually adopting, and like they have these what they call revisions, and how you can adopt it to your based on what you have, not necessarily based on like maybe the prime standard and everything. So for instance, you might have like I'll give an example of what we had in ourselves was a facility registry. So that, we're talking about like where you're storing all your hospital information, dispensaries, clinics, and everything. So under FHIR, that falls under like a location resource. But like our system did not have at the time everything that like maybe would be expected of like a location resource. But you could adopt to that, work with what you have, iterate over it, and then without changing much, but there are some things that will always be available, for instance, for a location, and those you always go for. And I think that would be like an approach for something that's already existing without changing much with what you already have. That's me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bugani. I hope I got the name right.
No, that's right. We are.
What other experiences are there? So who else is doing things on FHIR? No one? I don't know if the participants, they are looking into tagging along with other experience, with other people's experience, or just doing something, trying to do something on their own. It would be important that if you have some expectations, needs, or you just want to know where to start, that you would speak up, and just this is really an informal discussion exactly for that, just for us to see what is needed, because then we can prepare some educational materials, prepare some tooling, whatever it is that people can that we can satisfy not what we think are the issues like they're out there, but what are actually the issues out there. So anyone, experiences, challenges, ideas?
Here again, Riani. So I have like challenges, having went through the, like worked with FHIR before, even though I have, but I find it always challenging to, like navigate the whole, resources available. So if there's anybody who has gone through like to some degree, and then like they've, would guide the rest of us in terms of how to approach it, that would be great, because my approach was based on the tasks that were there. Like, okay, we have this issue, let's fix it, and that's about it. But I know that there are also certifications around FHIR. I just haven't taken in one of them for now. But then I also know that with like a guided approach, somebody who's been there can be able to help the rest of us navigate through how we can go about like getting what we need to know about FHIR to start with and be comfortable. Because what I also learned is most people are not too comfortable with the discussion about FHIR. It's always a new thing still, because of like, from my end, that would be like one of those reasons. But I'm still interested, and I'll be working on FHIR for I can learn along the way as well. Having said that,
I do not understand the point. So it's about how to navigate the FHIR resources.
so you have there's obviously like a plethora of documentation out there, maybe like the official FHIR documentations and everything, but it's not to my take. It's not like properly guided. You have like these resources available to you and everything, but you have to figure yourself out along that as well.
Right.
So yeah, my thing was, with some other implementations or like some other tools or resources, you can always, even though it's complex, it's always, there's always like an approach to it. At least you should know these fundamentals to start with, and from this and everything. With FHIR, you have like obviously fundamental resources that you can like at least get yourself familiar with, but that's just about it. And with those as well, you still have to figure yourself out. So I mean, like I wouldn't expect somebody to know everything about it, but somebody, chances are, might have had like a different experience or a different resource that they used as an entry into that whole documentation route, and then it was easier for them to learn about FHIR. So that's what I was just want to ask, if there is such, and then that would be helpful for the rest of us.
So I don't know if you've seen, so that was an attempt. I'm not saying it was spectacular, because looking back, I would always do it a little differently. But we have made a couple of FHIR webinars, so it's 1 hour, 1.5 hour sessions, where we actually go through the key steps of FHIR. So one of them was basics of FHIR, just understanding what a resource is. Second one is, what is profiling? The third one is terminologies. And then, so just to give a bit that sense of navigation. I'm saying this and not with saying that this is a solution. So maybe this would help you, because this is just an introduction to the FHIR basics. I don't know if you have seen it.
Yeah, well, I might have had, and also for everybody, this is the first time for me on the call. And then like I might have missed a few things obviously as well, like from past conversations. I mean, that's nice, and that's what I was really asking about, because I did not know about that prior to this. So I'll definitely check them out. I think that's exactly what I was looking for. Like the resources and like what comprises of the resource, and like that, step-by-step approach, and then you can figure yourself out from the rest of them going forward.
Exactly.
Because cases will always be different, unique, and everything as well. So you can have like a one size fit all.
Indeed. So one of the things that we have, so that there's a kind of basics of FHIR, and then basics of technology on FHIR, and really just introduction. So they are not FHIR trainings, they are just welcoming courses, so that you can at least learn how to navigate the complexity of things. So again, not knowing how successful or how effective those videos are, they are always available there. And one of the things that came out of this is that it also depends, we are just working on this now. It also depends on who is the target, who is going for either a training, or who is going to do something with FHIR. It can be someone that's going to be more on the management side, or more on the technical implementation side, or maybe on the authorship side, or terminology side, or on the testing side. And they might have so definitely they have different backgrounds, and might have even different expectations. So we are trying to come up with some guidance on typical personas. So we, the community, we are trying to come up with some personas, like, okay, if you're a terminologist, then you might want to follow this path more closely than this, but you always have to get the basics. You have to know what the FHIR resource is and what's RESTful or not. A FHIR author, for example, a FHIR specification author, that's the person that has to know more, not by heart, but almost by heart, what kind of resources are there. There's always 1 or 2 surprises, because there are 150 now. But someone that should know more what FHIR resources are out there, whereas more an architect doesn't really care about what FHIR resources are out there, because we can always look it up. What we care about is more on the infrastructure side, the RESTful versus documents, and how to do searches and all these, and how to use parts of the resources, or how to put resources together. So there's a lot to be developed there. That's my expectation. But if you can comment on the videos that we have, and just say, hey, I've seen some videos, they are confusing, or they are a good start, but now we need that stream or we need a stream for testers, or we need a stream for managers or whatever. That's actually would be good feedback. But yeah, point taken. And it's a known thing that navigating FHIR, because FHIR is really big, it's sometimes it's intimidating. And that's why we have to actually have these conversations, that we just try to make it clear that it's just a bunch of tools and a bunch of resources that are like and we can advance so just to demystify a bit the complexity of FHIR. Yeah, I do suggest that you check those videos there. So you look for FHIR 101, and then there's a FHIR terminology, the FHIR profiling. Check those out and see if they help you, if they have something that helps you. You can just look at the slides or watch the videos, whatever you prefer.
Awesome. I'm sure they'll help. I'm sure that's getting enough.
Yeah,
and thanks.
And there's also a multitude, like a huge amount of YouTube videos. As part of this effort of, if I'm a terminologist, I will do this. We are also trying to put together short lists, that you don't have to learn about, I don't know, conformance statements if you're a terminologist, or maybe you do, I don't know. But there's some things that you should, some videos within the many hundreds of videos that should be out there. You don't have to watch them all. If your job is to be, a terminologist or a manager. If you're a manager, you don't have to go through all the technical stuff. Hopefully you have someone that in your team that can handle some of those things. But yeah. Any other things? I see one question there. George, experience with using extensions as type. What are you looking for?
Yeah, so we were doing the mapping for this work, and we were just comparing what our data elements are and what all these resources can be mapped to FHIR. So there was a section of just how the data types are. For example, we have national ID as an identifier, first name as human name type in FHIR, middle name as human name type. So for the resources that we didn't have like age, the team was suggesting that we use an extension, or for example, is pregnant, we use an extension. So I don't know whether that makes sense for you.
It does. So using extension is something that is normal on FHIR. There's a bit to unpack there. So you have a list of FHIR standard extensions that you can always look. So FHIR is not intended to be covering everything. So there's the 80-20 rule, like FHIR tries to do well the 80%, not covering all the 100% for your context or for my context, because that will always change. For that reason, even FHIR, the FHIR specification, I don't know if you are aware, has some extensions. So if you have, I'm just going to put a link for the FHIR standard extensions. So within FHIR, we have things like gender identity, deceased date. Those are things that are not really that common that they will be in all implementations, but those are also things that we don't want everyone to do their own way of expressing. For example, date of death or place of birth or gender identity. We want people to have those done in a consistent way throughout the different countries and different FHIR implementations. So FHIR itself publishes extensions. And this is actually something that is on the video or the slides that you can see on the FHIR profiling. It's all done in layers. If you're doing a project in your country, first thing that you could do is check if your country has national extensions. If so, you're better off. If not, check if your continent or if your preferred standards organization like IHE, OpenHIE has some extensions that would serve you. If not, check if HL7 has extensions. And if not, then you can create your own extension. Creating an extension is relatively easy in FHIR, which is a good thing because you can work quickly on those. There should be no problem. I mean, using extensions is not something that is that is advised against. But also, of course, as everything, you have to be careful that if it becomes too easy, then you will make too many of those extensions, because why bother checking with the community and checking if anyone else has had the same problem? For example, here's an extension. If you have, I don't think, George, I don't think it fits into your scope, but imagine that you're doing a medication prescription system. One of the things that will commonly be needed is people will commonly complain about is, oh, but I need the status of the prescription, whether it's dispensed or not. FHIR does not allow that out of the box. There's a reason for that, because actually that's not the status of the prescription, that's the status of the process that's initiated by the prescription. But initially people say, nah, I'll just add an extension here. And it might be good to add an extension there, because if that's all you need, then that's it. Or you might have, and typically I ask those questions a lot, it's like, okay, what do you mean the status of the prescription? What are the values there? And typically that's a fun discussion, because we start with, oh, I just need 3 statuses. And then at the end of the discussion, we come up with 10. And then at the next discussion, we see that those 10 are rubbish, or because there was always something missing, because one thing is the status from the dispensing perspective, the other thing is the status from the patient perspective, and maybe another thing is the status from the billing perspective. Sorry, this convoluted story is just to say that sometimes an extension seems easy, but if you have, it's always good to see what others are doing, because that might actually indicate that, yeah, no, an extension is not easy, because I think the problem is different than how I was trying to formulate it. So if your extension is status of a prescription, you might take this, what I just said, as an indication that, yeah, most likely there will be something that you're just not seeing in the requirements yet, or the requirements are not clear yet, but you will most likely need. So those are the things that you have to be careful with extensions. Other than that, using extensions is actually a good thing. You have standard extensions, you can define your own extensions. You define them in your implementation guide, hence the point to the implementation guide. And once you define them, you can use them in your specification. And the server does not really mind. So if you look at Happy, you can post extensions with your content, with your FHIR resources, and that's it. If you ask Happy to validate those, that's a different story. If you have an implementation guide, Happy can say this is okay. If you don't have an implementation guide, or if you don't have a structured specification on FHIR, the server will say, I don't know this extension, so I give an error. That's where I said you have all the advantages in using the FHIR system. If you make your specifications in a given way, then Happy will be happier, so to say.
Oh yeah, thanks for that. Just one clarification. So if I use these extensions and the rest of the community has not implemented these extensions that I'm using, will it have an effect on the FHIR message when they were requesting for a bundle from my server?
Sorry, again, could you repeat, please?
So with the use of extensions,
Yep.
when another third-party system wants to get a resource from my Happy server,
they will get the extensions.
They want to get the. Come again?
They will get the extension. So if you have a patient with a gender identity extension, if they query for a patient, they will get the patient with the extension. The extension becomes part of the resource.
Oh, perfect.
And they might have an error if they don't know what that extension is supposed to be like, because if you say that extension is a codable concept, but this means that somehow in your specification you should have the value set to say which codes can go there. But now your client is going and query your system and see the extension there, and it just doesn't have a way to validate it if they want to validate it. So that's why the publication of the specifications is really an important step, so that everyone has agreed expectations on what is expected and how to handle this. Like if you have your extension, then the system. So if you have your extension definition hosted somewhere, then the system that queries you, they will know that, oh, this extension, I know this extension. Oh, and I see that this extension is a codable concept. Oh, and I see that this is the value set. okay, let me validate if the content is okay before processing this extension. If you don't have that, then you can program your client to be more permissive and say, whatever, I don't care about this extension, so I'll just ignore it. Or you can say, no, it's something that I don't know, and if I don't know it, I'm going to reject the incoming response. Those are your degrees of freedom. But if you have structured documented specifications, then it helps you.
Thanks so much, Joseph. That was very helpful.
Some of this is in the video, so we might, if you feel like catching up with a few videos, I would recommend those. Just for information, I did a third iteration of the FHIR introduction a few months ago, and looking back, I realized, and it is because I think it was you that said, I'm learning FHIR. We're all learning FHIR. So 2 years ago, I made this first video with the beginning of FHIR, and I was so insecure and so trying to cover everything, but not being able to go into all the details, and everything was a bit confusing in my head because there was lots of content. I did it a couple of weeks ago, and it was much better. So as you go through things, and this is my point, as you go through things that know how things will fit together nicely in the place. So after you make your first extension, or after you populate your first extension in a JSON, you'll see how it looks like. Then you make an implementation guide and say, this is so much easier. And then you put it on the server and say, how would I even do this on JSON anymore? That just sounds so much so much old way of working. So I'm looking forward to see you going through that path, that experience, acquiring that experience, and in 1 year saying, how could I, these things made sense 1 year ago, but they are so natural now. They come so naturally. That's actually what I would hope for the community. Who else is doing FHIR? Who else is suffering for doing FHIR? Or who else is suffering for not doing FHIR yet? Has anyone here trying to get onto FHIR, but they are lacking something? They don't have the training. They don't have the people. Anything? Anyone at the beginning of the journey? Okay. Anyone with pressing topics or Samuel, please. I could not see the hands easily.
Yeah,
Please
I was just saying, I'm also just starting out on the journey. So I think any resources, especially like a community, where we can ask questions and see what others have implemented would help. Because I think the main challenge is with information, access to information. Most of us are not really using because we don't know, we don't have access to that information.
Great question. I just put 2 links there. So the greatest thing about FHIR, in my opinion, it's not that it's restful or it's modern or it's easy. It's that it has a very good community behind it, a very well-motivated, very helpful community. And that community hangs around in chat.fhir.org. So you can ask any questions, pretty much in any language. Depends. I mean, if you ask things in a language that most people don't talk, you can expect less responses, less engagement. But everyone is there. I mean, everyone that is contributing to the FHIR specification, improving FHIR, making tools on FHIR, the broad community is there in the chat.fhir.org. And we just started. I think there's now an issue with requiring an invitation. I think that should be fixed soon. With the global goods, we also started a global goods chat where we actually want people that work with global goods or around global goods to have some sharing point where they can say, I don't know anything about FHIR, or I know everything about FHIR, but I disagree with this resource, or this resource is very confusing. I have these questions all the time. So there's a couple of places where you can just ask or challenge or push for some agenda topics. Normally, the chat.fire.org is really the FHIR community. The global goods are more on the implementer side, and it's a smaller community because we are starting to grow it. So I hope that helps. But feel free to jump on any of those on any level of knowledge. So there's no required preset of skills. So you just go in there and say, I'm doing FHIR. I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm doing FHIR and I have some issues, or I know everything about this part of FHIR, but I don't understand that one. All those are really welcome questions to the chat.fire.org and to the global goods as well.
All right, thanks. I've already signed up. Thanks for the links.
Awesome. What else are we busy with? Anyone suffering with terminologies at this moment? My interpretation of that answer is not yet. Terminology is also something that becomes quite important, and with FHIR it takes a first seat or first row seat. So I'm just curious to see how people are facing terminology issues or not, or terminology challenges. Terminologies themselves, there's a lot of information, but how to use them and when to use what, that's usually a common challenge as well, in my opinion. All right. Anything else? If not, I have a FHIR training starting now. So in a few minutes, not necessarily now, but in a few minutes, I would like to switch on to that call and see if I can have some time to get ready for the FHIR training that I'm going to host. If we don't have any more questions on this call, or topics, or ideas. So my recommendation, as usual, is please register for chat.fire.org. Don't be afraid to ask. If you have a question that you don't really know whom to ask, feel free to tag me or to just send me a message. You'll find my name there, or someone else that you might know, and say, where should I ask this? Oh, we should ask this in this stream or that stream, or there's a similar question there. So you can always get that first feedback personally, or just go nuts and explore your community. But the most important thing, just get engaged. That's something that I repeat in the webinars that we host, and also here. Please get engaged. Check chat.fire.org as a way to communicate with others, and yeah, and let's have some fun. Do we have any other topics? Any other questions? If not, I would thank you very much for being here, and hope to see you around in a FHIR webinar that we host, or another fireside chat, or on chat.fire.org. Please get engaged. Please ask questions. Please tell us what you're up to. It's really important for us to see what people are up to, because if you see that people are really struggling to start, yeah, we need to enforce the education part. Or if people are really looking at implementation, yeah, we have to improve the tooling. And your feedback is absolutely essential. So thank you for joining. Thank you for continuing the engagement, and see you around. All right, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you.